In a world drowning in data, open source intelligence is the difference between noise and insight. I'm Jake Creps, and this is the OSINT Podcast, unpacking the tools, tactics, and techniques that matter to the OSINT community. Whether you're tracking threats, analyzing platforms, or just trying to separate signal from noise, this is your go-to resource for all things open source intelligence. Let's get started. Hey everyone, and welcome to the 15th episode of the OSINT Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Creps. We have a lot to announce in this episode of the OSINT Podcast, so stick around. But just as a high-level overview, in typical fashion, I'll be covering two OSINT Newsletter issues, issue number 99 and the milestone issue number 100. Issue 99 is the free issue, which we'll be talking about offline OSINT local search tools and methods. And this isn't local as in local around you in your location, but local on your device itself, like searching on the computer itself. And then we'll be pivoting over to issue number 100, 5 ethical ways to develop your OSINT skill set. This will be a continuation of the OSINT certification issue that I talked about a few issues ago, and where you can go to level up your skill set moving forward. But before we dive in, there's one big announcement that I wanted to make sure that I highlight here in this episode, and that is the launch of the new OSINT Newsletter Toolkit. If you head on over to tools.osintnewsletter.com, we have a gigantic repository filled with OSINT tools, and not just a list of tools, but also how to use them and different insights that you can gain from those tools, like different use cases, success stories, etc. And in addition to that, we also are going to be returning OSINT Tool Tuesday at some point in the future to help support additional tools that have been added to this tool set. So essentially the way it's going to work is that we'll be adding new tools on a continuous basis to the toolkit. And this isn't just stuff from the OSINT Newsletter team, but also from the OSINT community itself. So if you want to submit tools, feel free to upload those and submit them for review. But in OSINT Tool Tuesday, we're actually going to be doing a deep dive into each one of these tools and not only talk about how to get them configured and running properly if it's a GitHub project or maybe even some configuration on web apps, but we're also going to be talking about stepping you through actually using the tools, screenshots, videos, a variety of other super rich resources for these tools to make it a lot easier to pick up and run with. So again, check that out at tools.osintnewsletter.com. I'm pretty excited about that, and so far we've had great engagement online after launching it earlier this month. The last thing that I want to mention, and just something that I want to make sure you all don't forget about, is the CTF that we run on a weekly basis. So head on over to ctf.osintnewsletter.com. There are weekly challenges that you can use to improve your OSINT skill set. And that's one of the things in addition to the 5 ethical ways to develop your OSINT skill set that we'll talk about later on in this episode. So with that all being said, quick recap: issue number 99 is free, offline OSINT. Issue number 100 is paid, but we do have the 6 topics that we typically cover. And we'll be talking about ethical ways to improve your OSINT skill set. We have the new toolkit at tools.osintnewsletter.com, and we have continuous new CTFs at ctf.osintnewsletter.com. So let's go ahead and get started, but make sure you subscribe to this podcast to make sure that you get all of the latest and greatest every time we release an episode. Right now, we're releasing an episode every 2 weeks, but we always have consistent content going out on our social media related to both the newsletter and the podcast. So make sure you check those out as well. If you are familiar with some of our social posts, we have a lot of videos, a lot of screen shares of tools being used to help you better visualize the things that we're talking about. And those are the types of things we want to sort of codify and put into the OSINT toolkit as well. So let's go ahead and get started in this week's episode. This is a topic that I've covered before, and it's local search. And the reason why it's important is oftentimes you gather very large data sets, whether they're leaked data sets, whether they're gigantic CSVs or SQL databases, and they are rich with information that you can use for your investigations. But how do you actually go about efficiently searching these things? I've tried everything. I have used a tool in the past called Table Cruncher, for example, that's able to actually open up some of these massive files where, out of the box tools like Excel or Google Sheets seemingly fail. But there's often easier ways if you have a little bit of technical chops where you don't have to actually purchase a tool like Table Cruncher, which I do recommend that you check out if you are limited on the command line, for example, at work or whatever. But if you are able to use some of these command line tools and other methods, you're going to be much better off when it comes to exploring some of these very large data sets. So in this issue of the OSINT newsletter, which is issue number 99. If you want to follow along, it's osintnewsletter.com/99. But we go through at a very high level how to search through all of these gigantic data sets. We talk about searching, we talk about processing that data, we talk about tools like grep, which are things that I've mentioned in the past. Grep allows you to use things like regex to be able to pull out patterns within things. So if you're not searching for a specific string, like a specific phone number, email address, or keyword, you can set up a regex pattern, which now, fortunately, because regex is terrible to deal with if you aren't a regex thinker, you can just use tools like ChatGPT or Claude to write the regex for you based on the patterns that you're interested in. And then from there, you can plug those into grep and search for them across your device. And if you have the power to be able to use a tool like grep or any of its flavors like ripgrep, for example, if you're really worried about performance, then you'll be able to collect things at will. You'll be much more inclined to collect everything that you see because it's very easy for you to process that locally once you get it onto your device. In addition to grep, there are also tools like CSV Kit, which I've used in the past, which makes it a lot easier to not only search and manipulate CSV files, but also to be able to manipulate them in a way where you can clean them, you can deduplicate them, you can split them based on your criteria. You can really process your data a lot more efficiently. This issue also goes on to talk about other tools. I mentioned ripgrep already. If you want really high performance or you have extremely large data sets and you're really worried about getting information quickly. But there's also tools like JQ, SQLite, as well as AWK, which are all sort of command line based. And they're all tools that I highly recommend that you get familiar with, especially if you are serious about OSINT collection and analysis, and specifically if you're dealing with very large data sets. So the issue then goes on to do it in action, as we typically do. We want to be able to show you new tools that you can take into your skill set, but then also how to actually apply them with real world examples. And here we have a 4-step process where you can go from searching to processing to structured analysis of the data, as well as checking other formats as well to make sure that you're comprehensive with your investigation, or at least the processing of information in your investigation. So definitely go ahead and check out this issue. This was a very high-level overview of what's involved, but because it is a technical skill set, it's very difficult to talk about without having specific visual aids. And so this is an area where you definitely want to dig into this week's episode or issue. And so again, it's osintnewsletter.com/99. There's also a CTF challenge that we post called the Hacktivist. And if you want to sort of flex your OSINT chops and see if you can end up on the leaderboard, definitely give that a look. And as always, the CTFs are free. It costs nothing to participate. In addition, it costs you absolutely nothing to subscribe to the OSINT newsletter if you wish. There's only a small portion of the newsletter at this point that's paid, especially now that we've launched CTFs, the free issues bi-weekly, as well as the free toolkit. There's only a very small section now of the entire collection of what we're putting out. That's behind a paywall, and that's specifically because we're really focused on building the community, enabling the community, and we just want to make sure we collect enough revenue just to be sustainable and continue the operation moving forward. But that's it for the free issue of the OSINT podcast, or the OSINT newsletter issue number 99. Let's go ahead and move on over to the OSINT newsletter issue number 100. If you want to go ahead and follow along, it's osintnewsletter.com/100. We hit triple digits. And again, this will be 5 ethical ways to develop your OSINT skill set. But before we dive in, once again, I want to make sure that you're aware, if you're a new listener here, that we do cover 3 free topics from OSINT News. We also cover 3 tools from the OSINT Toolkit. And these are things, and this is what's really great about the format of this newsletter, is that now when I'm discovering and testing out new tools, We don't just have to keep them in an archive of different tools that are available in the OSINT newsletter. So you don't have to go back to issue number 45, 57, 63, whatever. You can just search for specific use cases within the toolkit and be able to find all of the things we've discovered over time. And best of all, we're able to maintain that database a lot more easily. So if tools go offline, if they go behind a paywall, etc., we can easily update that within the database. The first topic in the news section of the OSINT newsletter is titled Public GitHub Repositories from News Organizations. This is something I came across on LinkedIn. There is a new website called Open Journalism, and what the mission of Open Journalism is it's to monitor all of the free and publicly available resources that are generated by news organizations, and that could be sometimes it could be tools like things that Bellingcat puts out or whatever. It could be data sets and other useful bits of information, and these are things that are found on places like GitHub. They're found on like local pages that the the news organizations publish on. And what this thing is, Open Journalism, is it tracks those, it consolidates those, and it reports them on a bi-weekly basis. And so sometimes some of the best tools and resources that are available are published by news organizations. So it's definitely something that I'm going to continuously monitor for new opportunities to present within the newsletter. But it's something that I also recommend that you check out and subscribe to. So that you can stay on top of it and not have to rely on me cherry picking things out that are specific to this audience within the newsletter. So go ahead and check that out. It's the first thing in the OSINT news section. You can also check it out at openjournalism.news. The second thing that I wanted to mention in the news section is changes in Google programmable search engines. So if you aren't familiar, these are things called CSEs or custom search engines. And what you used to be able to do in the past is you'd be able to put in a variety of Google dorks as sort of operators or filters on a search. And then you'd be able to search within that search bar with all of those filters in mind. And the real key benefit of that was that you didn't have to constantly manage all these different keyword patterns to be able to get the search results that you wanted. You'd be able to create a single search engine that would automatically apply those all the time. And then what you could do is you could just create a repository of links that would automatically apply those to that CSE. So it would just concatenate those to the URL or other methods, and then you'd be able to easily streamline your search process. That is sort of an antiquated technology with newer search engine technologies that are out there, as well as the arrival of Gen AI or other types of information retrieval services that are easier or more accurate or maybe even more robust to use. And along with that, Google is making changes to their programmable search engines. They will no longer have the option to do a full web search. So what does that mean? It means that the results that you're getting from your custom search engines will likely be lower fidelity. If your results are lower fidelity, they're going to be lower in trustworthiness because you might be missing information. And worst of all, you may not know which information that you're missing, and you may not be able to describe the discrepancy and loss of data. So if you are using these, or if you're using any tools that leverage CSEs, definitely take a look, do an audit, see if the loss is acceptable, if you've even noticed the difference over time. And if you have, then I recommend that you diversify your search technologies a little bit more to make sure that if these fully go away, which it seems like it may be a slow deprecation of the service, then you're not sort of caught on your back foot looking for alternatives when the existing solution that you have is completely gone. So definitely check that out. That is the second thing that's posted in the news section. I read about it on LinkedIn, so I posted a LinkedIn update there. So you can go ahead. Henry Beek posted it on LinkedIn, and he gives a little bit more details within his posts. Finally, in the news section, we have open source intelligence shuts down by The Economist. And once again, I always find it very interesting when you find OSINT-related news appearing in larger publications like The Economist. It shows you not only that OSINT has arrived, I mean, it's been here for a while, but the name of open source intelligence is becoming more commonplace. But in this case, this article highlights how many open source researchers, specifically those that rely on satellite imagery, are running into problems when they're trying to find satellite imagery of the existing conflicts that are happening in the Middle East, particularly the conflict that's happening in Iran now that involves the United States, Israel, and several other Gulf nations in addition to Iran. These images, which were typically available before, have either been blocked or removed. And this article sort of talks about how the consolidation of a lot of these technologies, this information, going at a very enterprise level makes it very difficult for people to get access to information, especially in a timely fashion. It also shows that once you've consolidated enough of the information, you can easily just change policies, which in this case, it seems like there seems to be some sort of change in policy that disrupts an entire workflow. And so I talk about this all the time, is you want to build redundancy so that when these types of events, the types of events that are specifically being talked about in the economists happen, you aren't being caught on your back foot and you don't have to go back to your stakeholders or your ICs or anything like that and say, hey, we are currently down. We're trying to find a way to get the information that you want. Please stand by until further notice. Nobody wants to be caught in that type of situation. And so it's definitely worth a read and definitely something worth looking at, especially if you are following the conflict that's happening right now in that region. That's it for the news section of the OSINT newsletter. Again, check it out, osintnewsletter.com/100. We're going to go ahead and move on to the tools section. There are 3 tools that I'm going to be talking about. 2 of them are from GitHub. One is a web app, but I'll go ahead and start at the first one. It's called Wiretapper. I mentioned in a previous issue, in a previous episode, I still have to figure out how I want to differentiate between talking about the newsletter itself and the podcast, but bear with me while I figure it out. But this is another niche tool I mentioned in a previous episode about a replacement to Wiggle and how Wiggle's user interface is a little outdated. Some of their feature set is a little bit clunky, and we've definitely improved at the way that we interact with tools online, and I think that they are definitely due for a major overhaul. However, this tool, Wiretapper, actually leverages several APIs that are similar to Wiggle. It actually includes Wiggle as well, Wiggle, WPA-SEC, OpenCell ID, and Shodan API keys to actually give you this very cool, very robust geospatial type tool that overlays specific location-based technical data from passive sources to allow you to be able to, let's say, pan over a location, see if there are specific IP addresses and related information about those IPs that are associated with that location, see if there's information about phone numbers, cell towers, a variety of different things to give you more situational awareness. What I really like about this tool is a lot of people like to interact with geospatial tools. Think Google Earth, for example. It's a lot more visual. It allows you to better and analyze a situation from a visual perspective, from a spatial perspective. And so layering on technical intelligence, which is often very difficult to visualize sometimes, on top of a tool like this makes it a lot more digestible and also a lot more presentable. If you throw this up on a big screen, start panning around and showing some people some intelligence you've collected, it clicks a lot better with stakeholders, business leaders, things like that, than it does just like a spreadsheet full of information or an API response or some sort of report that includes a lot of technical information. So definitely check that out. It's a GitHub project. I linked to it in the newsletter, and it's free to use. You just need to get a Shodan API key, which I recommend. Just go wait until Black Friday. They usually do like a $5 lifetime subscription deal or something like that. Hopefully they keep doing it. But get one of those, get a couple other API keys. Just use Claude or ChatGPT, download the GitHub tool, have it apply all your API keys, how to configure everything for you, shows you how to use the tool, and then go ahead and start using it. Definitely worth checking out. The next tool on the list is called DeadDrop. It's a tool that's published by the OSINT consultant, and it is yet another Telegram search engine. But, as I always say, always build redundancy. You might be using tools that you've been using for a long time to search for Telegram channels, Telegram groups, Telegram messages. Not one scraper has all the information, so sometimes you may find the needle in a haystack using another tool. Additionally, let's say that you're using telemetry or another tool, and this is no shade on those tools. Like I said, I think they're all great for their own reasons, but let's say they jack the price up. They're like, hey, now you gotta pay 3 times as much. Let's say it's no longer in the budget. You probably want to have a couple things on the shelf so you can say, hey, we're not going to be able to move forward with this subscription, for example. We have to, find something more cost effective. This might be that solution for you if it ends up being lower in price. So you always want to be aware of what's available on the market, and you want to be able to test things out accordingly to see if they're actually worth a damn or not. Dead Drop, I think, has a free trial. They automatically extended my trial. I don't know why, but I got a 14-day pro trial on top of the trial that I was working with. So I checked it out. It's very user-friendly, very easy to use. It's a web application, no GitHub, nothing like that. And so it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you are a lower tech user and you really prefer to use a web app or a browser extension rather than a terminal or a command line. The last thing on the list is called Loot Bin. And the reason why I bring this tool up is that I think it's very interesting. And of course, all the tools are interesting, but I think the concept itself is interesting. So if you are familiar, if you've been in this space for a while, you probably remember when all things were posted on Pastebin. You could get social security numbers, you could get credit card numbers, you can get whatever the hell you wanted. As long as you did a keyword search in Pastebin's API, you'd find all kinds of interesting things. Pastebin obviously tightened things up. They removed a lot of this content from the web or from their portal. They just sort of nerfed the service over time so that it was eventually used for its intended purposes, which was pasting something, getting a URL for it, and sending it to somebody so you don't have to actually send them any specific information over email or otherwise, right? A little bit more anonymity, no tracking, something like that. What Loot Bin does is there's a new service called Term Bin. And Term Bin is like Pastebin, but it happens on the command line. So what that means to me is that Term Bin is very specific information. You're sharing it from the terminal. You're able to access it there. But those things are often not going to be indexed by search engines. And if they are, it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to search for them and get the information that you need. So what Loot Bin does is it sort of creates a collection engine for you to be able to extract information from Term Bin. Now, there's a lot of bins out there. And what typically happens is Pastebin will nerf itself and say, okay, no more creds, no more credit card numbers, no more SSNs, nothing like that. So then a new one will come out like, Ghost Bin or something. And then there'll be just a new bin. You're constantly tracing all these bins, but the specific information you're looking for, depending on your use case, is going to be valuable PII or other related information about like cyber attacks, IOCs, file names, things like that, right? So this one I think is going to be a little bit more difficult to police. It's going to be very more difficult to access because of the way that you interact with it. And so Loot Bin sort of creates this layer on top of it to make it easier to collect on. So it's definitely something that I'm very interested in, and something that I think if you are in the executive protection space, for example, and you want to track, information about specific people's PII, whether you're looking at technical intelligence, and this stuff's often shared like exploits, POCs, things like that, definitely give this a shot, add it to your collection arsenal, and make sure you're not sleeping on the information that's available in Term Bin. But that's it for the free issue of the OSINT newsletter. We are now going to pivot into the paid content. And this theme of the issue number 100 is 5 ethical ways to develop your OSINT skill set. Now, like I said, I mentioned this earlier, but earlier in the year, I talked about how OSINT certifications really aren't worth it. They're very expensive. They teach you methods, tools, and techniques that may not even exist 6 months or a year from now. So you're spending all of this money to learn about all these methods, all of these mindsets that may just deprecate over time. And the real value is trying to get to that conclusion, get to that result without having to pay for it, because it teaches you the resiliency of how to adjust to the market. If you rely on these trainers and these like bundled up pieces of information to tell you where to go, you're not going to build the flexibility to be able to search for new capabilities and evolve with the trade over time. And so that's why I think it's important. And what I really wanted to highlight in this specific episode is 5 ethical ways that you can develop your skill set while also staying on top of all the trends all at the same time. Now, one of the things that I excluded from this, just because I've already talked about it before, is participating in CTFs that are offered by the OSINT newsletter. You can check them out at ctf.osintnewsletter.com. They're absolutely free, and it gives you interesting, different types of ways to apply your skill set. But we're not going to cover that in detail. I don't want this to be too sort of pluggy in the podcast. I really want to put on specific other information, not just things that are going to be provided by us as the publication. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Once again, it's going to be very high level. It's behind the paywall. All the specific details are going to be much more valuable if you read them, but I just want to give you a little bit of a teaser of what you can expect. So the first thing that I mentioned is collecting, creating, and sharing OSINT tools. Now, some of you may snicker because there's a lot of people who do this online. They're just aggregators. They post the tools. They may have never used the tools. They just want to get the engagement and likes online. That's totally fair, but you missed the point. The point is that they're searching for new tools. They're finding interesting ones. They're posting them online. They're learning what engages the audience more and what engages the audience less. And they look for tools that are going to be engaging the audience more because they want better engagement online. Now, all of that is very influencer-like, but the important part to notice is that because of the feedback that you're getting from social media platforms, it actually tells you what things are intriguing, what things are useful, and it allows you to sort of tailor your searching so you only find useful things. And then before you know it, you're like, I have my finger on the pulse of the industry. I know what people are looking for. I know it's useful. And I'm slowly becoming an expert on them because not only am I finding tools, I'm learning how to use them if I'm doing it properly, and I'm not just creating a content mill. I'm sharing with the community and understanding the feedback. And then if you're super smart, you're building a repository of all your findings, especially all of your high engaging findings, so that you can share that repository later. And then people don't have to go hunting through your social media profile to find a specific post that you mentioned maybe a month ago. So I kind of talk about that more in detail inside of the issue, but that's at a high level where you should start if you're brand new. Just engage, find cool stuff, share it, participate in the community. Once you're at that level, the next thing I talk about is publishing how-to articles. These two places are where I started. I aggregated tools, I shared them, I figured out how to use them. I wrote blog posts about how you can use them too, with all these different use cases, case studies, success stories, whatever. And what ended up happening is I gained an expertise in a lot of these technical OSINT tools because people were like, yeah, it's really cool that you have all these tools, but I don't even know how to use Git. I don't know how to use Python. I'm really worried about these things. I remember it was 2016, 2017 maybe. I gave a presentation at a conference down in Texas somewhere, and I was talking about Python tools, and somebody asked me what Python was. And this was maybe 10 years ago or something like that. But what I was doing was I was sort of on the edge of what was new at the time, which was GitHub related tools for open source collection. People were mostly using search engines. They were using court records. They were using TLOXP to be able to find these things. Very corporate, very private investigator. By publishing some of these how-to articles, I was increasing my own technical skill set, which sort of gave me a unique position in the market at the time. Now a lot of people have sort of leveled up, and this is very commonplace to be able to use these tools, but at the time it was very unusual. So I talk about how this has really benefited my career as well as my skill set itself. I also talk about here where, and I mentioned it earlier, we're bringing back OSINT Tool Tuesday to sort of demonstrate the value of this. So that's coming soon. There's a couple that are older in the archive if you're interested to see what those are going to look like. They'll be slightly different this time around, but I linked here, for example, there was a Telegram phone number checker that I did a big deep dive on, and I linked it in this issue as well if you're interested in reading that. But one of the big pieces of feedback that I got at the time was they're like, you're just creating a README for the tool. I'm like, yeah. I could just do a PR, I guess, on the README and improve it on the tool itself. But there are so many things that you can do within your own content platform to be able to sort of provide a better experience for people that are looking for more information. One, if you put everything in GitHub, you're assuming that somebody's going to find the GitHub page. If you start writing blog posts, Medium posts, things on social media, for example, like Threads, then you're actually getting that exposure of that tool to audiences that typically wouldn't find it organically. So that's one of the things that I notice, as a rebuttal to the whole enhanced README argument. But there's another thing too that's really cool is you can do a lot of screenshotting, video capturing, voiceovers, and of course you could put those in GitHub as well, but I think they land a little bit better on social media and inside of blogs. And so if you sort of collect the tools, use the tools, write how-to articles about the tools, before you know, you're like, I actually know quite a few methods. If someone asks me for an intelligence requirement, I can fill it using a variety of tools in my tool set. And it's not that I just have a whole collection of them. I've actually used them. I've taught other people how to use them. And since I've taught other people how to use them, they're top of mind for me. They're not just something that I saw once upon a time. I actually took the time to write a detailed write-up about them, which has improved my position as far as me understanding the material. Then I actually go into practical application. So this is sort of the prerequisites. You're new to OSINT, you want to improve your skill set, that's where you should start. Once you get a handle on like sort of what the methods are that are available, then you can start digging more into actual investigations. So where do you start? You should not investigate people that you see on the news when you first start. You definitely shouldn't be sharing your findings because you could be interrupting an ongoing investigation, or you could be publishing fake news. Definitely don't do that. But what you can do is you can improve your own life without having to publish any of this material online. And what do I mean by that? I talk about investigating email addresses in your spam folder to start. Now, a few caveats here. You specifically want to be looking for email addresses that are like Gmail, ProtonMail, Yahoo, Hotmail, etc., because those are the ones that are going to be a little bit more easy to investigate from a commercial email address perspective. But another thing that people will often say is like, these are just throwaway accounts. If you investigate these email addresses or these phone numbers or whatever, these things that you're getting from spam, they're just going to lead to dead ends. And the thing is that's not the point. The point isn't for you to have this great revelation of like taking down a spam number farm or a scam, a scam operation somewhere from email addresses. The point is just to get repetitions in. And if you start by saying, hey, I'm going to investigate this email address, I'm going to peel off the username from this email address, I'm going to run that, I'm going to find results, I'm going to group them, I'm going to find ones that have similar profile photos, similar locations, similar biographical details. Then I'm going to start fusing this information together. I'm going to look at email address results, username results. I'm going to pull out images. I'm going to reverse image search. I'm going to group all of these alike things. And then I'm going to be able to make an assessment based on the information that I have, which one of these is most likely associated to the account. Now, you may just run into dead ends all day, but every now and then, because I've done it before, you'll hit a lead and you're like, hey, this guy is scamming people. He's sending people email addresses, send me Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. We have your information if you want it back. All these types of scare tactics, for example, but you're like, hey, I just found your Instagram account. And now I know to warn people that this person is associated to this scam account. And this is not something you want to post online and say, look, I found a scammer, because you could be wrong. And if you're wrong, you could do reputational damage, and that's not good. But you can work with nonprofits. You can work with other providers to be able to say, hey, this is a potential account of interest. You, with your more advanced resources and skill sets, you can validate that, but I just wanted to give you a lead. So that's definitely something that you can check out as a way to get your repetitions in, because if you have the tools, you understand the tools, now you have to get your reps in to gain a little bit of mastery. And this is a very good way to do that with very low risk, especially if you're not sharing the details online. Then I talk about pivoting over to volunteer organizations. And this is something I will constantly talk about because I think it's the best way that you can use your skill set for good. I mentioned 3. The first is, of course, Trace Labs. It's very easy, it's very inexpensive to participate, and the impact is very large. And you can use a variety of different skills, and it puts you on the clock, which gives you the pressure of making fast decisions and really being able to flex those things I was mentioning before of like, hey, I need to be able to, reverse this image and find more accounts for this person. I already have done a write-up on PimEyes, FaceCheck, Surface, whatever it may be. I already know how these tools work. I don't have to think about what tools are available. It's all just top of my mind. And so it's a great way of putting yourself under pressure and also being able to act quickly on the information you've already learned. Then I talk about National Child Protection Task Force, another excellent cause that I participated in myself. It's not a CTF format. It's slower. The cases are ongoing, and you can really work hand in hand with this organization to actually make a big impact. But it allows you to slow down a little bit. Take your time, put all your findings into a Maltego graph, be able to analyze them long-term, collaborate. And these are all things that are going to be incredibly valuable for you as you grow your career using publicly available information. So definitely the second one to check out is the NCPTF. The third one is the Skull Games Task Force. And this isn't something that I've myself participated in, but I know people who have. And while the National Child Protection Task Force seems to be more passive, like we're behind the scenes, we're investigating, we're supplying information to law enforcement, Skull Games seems to be a little bit more active. They're specifically involved in interdiction of child exploitation, for example. And so if you want to get more hands-on and you don't want to just be in the background on like a Microsoft Teams, just sort of like sharing information, but you want to be, doing something that's a little bit more right now, then that might be another option for you as well. So, you know the tools, you've taught people the tools, you understand the methods, the technologies behind them, you've started to use them in sort of mock investigations in your spam folder, your spam calls. Now you're going to participate. You're going to learn what you don't know. You're going to place like 137th in the Trace Lab CTF. And you're like, wow, these wizards at the top, there's some stuff I got to learn, right? If I want to get into the top 10, for example. So definitely make sure that you are using your skill set for good and you're not using it unethically, like stalking, swatting, doxing people. That's definitely stuff that you do not want to do whatsoever. Finally, the last thing I mentioned is removing your identity online and helping others do the same. One of the great things about OSINT is it really illuminates how big of a digital footprint people really have online. And sometimes that's kind of scary. You're like, hey, especially now that the like Web 2.0 has been around for like 20 years at this point, is you're like, yeah, I have accounts that have like pictures of me from when I'm 15 on them. And I haven't logged into those accounts in 20, 30 years, however old you are. And I really wish that wasn't published online. You go to those profiles, you have like really cringy profile descriptions and just a lot of information that you probably didn't want to post on the internet, like your address or anything like that. If you use OSINT on yourself, right, collect all the information, analyze the information, make decisions, right, you can start to remove some of your own digital footprint. And this will teach you sort of what types of things can get exposed and also how to find that information if you need to look for it from an offensive perspective later. Another great thing that you can do is once you've cleared your plate, and I'm not saying that you have to be a complete sleuth on the internet. If you want to keep your Facebook profile, keep your Facebook profile. But if you remove everything that you don't want, then you've limited the attack surface that you have for anybody trying to, spam you or do anything that they want to do that you don't want to have to deal with. But you can also help others. You can say, hey, Mom, I looked up your information online and there's way too much information. Do you want me to help you clean that up a little bit? You can do that for your neighbors. You can do that for your church. You can do that wherever you participate with society. You can offer to do that for free, and you can build your OSINT skill set, and you can do good along the way because these people will leave knowing that they're better off as far as their data privacy is concerned than they were before you helped them. So all of these things are going to help you not only improve your skill set, but also the mindset that this is a skill you can use for good, and you don't have to always use it from a negative, like surveillance type perspective. OSINT sometimes gets a bad vibe about being like a surveillance technology for the government. And while it can be, and it most certainly is, that doesn't mean that you have to be associated only with that use case. It's important that as OSINT investigators, especially those that contribute in the public domain and not on the behalf of other organizations, that we rebrand it a little bit so that people who hear about OSINT know that it can also be used for good as well. So that's what I talk about in very rich detail. I think that I'm looking at the word count here, 2,300 words in this issue of the OSINT newsletter. So if you're interested, you're a newer investigator, or you just want to tune the engine a little bit, definitely make sure to subscribe. Check it out. I think we have a free trial, 7 days. Check out the whole archive. You don't just get this post and everything moving forward. You get everything in the archive, and we just hit issue number 100. There's actually more than 100 issues in the archive. That's just, we started counting them numerically at a certain point. If you count all the OSINT Tool Tuesdays, all of the different roll-ups that I've done, there's well over 100 different resources within the archive. So definitely check it out. And that's it for this episode of the OSINT Podcast. Again, make sure to follow on social. We have a lot more context we provide there, a lot more visual aids. Definitely check out the new tool set. It's tools@osintnewsletter.com, and the CTF. That's the 6th way that you can practice your skill set ethically. So thanks again for listening, and I hope that you join us again 2 weeks from now for the 16th episode of the OSINT Podcast. I'll see you then.